Hi everybody! Welcome to Living Traditions Homestead. Today is a day that we completely cover one of our in-ground gardens with the woven weed fabric that we have grown to love so much. Today we want to show you how we do it, how we burn holes, and really how we prepare to begin planting in this garden.
A couple of weeks ago, we pulled up all of the old weed fabric that we had in this garden. We showed you guys that. It was such a nightmare because of some mistakes that we had made last year. You need to go back and watch that video so you can learn from our mistakes. After we got that all torn up, we tilled this area again. We let it settle, and then we added some organic fertilizer. We tilled it one more time, and we waited until after we had a couple days of rain, which is now. And it's time to start putting down this weed fabric.
Yesterday, we spent about 4 hours beginning this project. So we did most of the perimeter here, and then we started laying all the rows and marking the rows where we're gonna plant and what we're gonna plant in the rows. We have several rows that still need to be done at the very back, and we're gonna bring you along today.
Now this garden is 50 feet wide by 75 feet long. We got about 3/4 of it done yesterday in about 4 hours as far as putting down the fabric. So we've got probably a pretty full day yet of work in here today because we need to put down the rest of the fabric. We need to put up our trellises, and then we need to put our electric fencing around the garden to keep animals out. So we need to get to work. We're gonna bring you guys along. We're gonna show you step by step what we do, how we get this all ready, because we're hoping that by the end of the week, we'll be ready to start planting in here. We actually wanted to start planting earlier, but now they're saying we could get up to 5 inches of rain this week. So I think we're gonna hold off until after that goes by because we don't want our little baby seedlings or our seeds to just kind of rot in the ground from so much rain so quickly.
We've also had 2 unexpected and late freeze warnings. We're past those, thankfully. Nothing froze here at our place and nothing got damaged, but there were places around us that had a freeze late in May. That's very unusual for us.
Crazy things going on with the weather, so we're just gonna hold off, I think, another week just to be safe, and I think we'll be all ready to get. We've got tons of tomatoes started, we've got peppers, we've got everything started in the greenhouse, just waiting to get out here. We're excited to get them in the ground, but we need to keep reminding ourselves that it's not worth jumping the gun and then losing everything that we've worked so hard for so far. So we need to just calm down. There's still gonna be plenty of time to eat tomatoes, even though I'm excited for it to get here.
So let's get started. So let me catch you up to speed with what we've already done, what our layout is so far, and how we're gonna do all of this. First of all, we laid out a perimeter of this woven weed fabric all around the garden so that we have space to put up our fencing. We will be using electric netting as a fencing all the way around the garden to make sure it keeps the critters out, those things that are gonna come in and eat all of our plants and our veggies. Then we just started laying out the rows according to the plan that I made earlier, a month ago or so. So first of all, the first 2 things that we are going to be planting in here are pinto beans. They're pole beans, or they're actually kind of semi-pole beans. So we'll have 1 row here and 1 row here. We'll need to put up trellises. Now, I want to show you that we actually have an entire row of the woven weed fabric. It's 3 feet in between each of these rows. That might seem like a lot of space in between rows of garden vegetables. This time of year when we're planting, it seems like a lot of space in between those rows, but when it comes to harvest time, I guarantee that having this amount of space in between your rows is going to serve you really well. It's really hard to be on your hands and knees with a basket when everything is so close to you. Your chances of breaking the plants is very high, spreading disease from one plant to another. So make sure that you're adding quite a bit of space in between your planting rows. Anyway, let's move on to the other rows here. So after the pinto beans, we will be planting 2 rows of green beans. We love green beans on the homestead. We have them at least once a week, maybe twice a week. And then we'll have a 5th row of beans, which this year will be edamame, which is soybeans that you eat fresh, or you can blanch them and freeze them to eat throughout the year. We absolutely love them as a snack. We tried them last year for the very first time, and we absolutely loved it. So we thought this year we're gonna do a whole row. Last year we only did half of a row. Moving on, this is a row that we're going to do cucumbers and okra. We'll be doing 2 types of cucumbers this year. One is called Market More, which is a standard slicing cucumber. We love it a lot. And the second one is called Dar, D-A-R. And it is a smaller cucumber. The vines don't get as tall. We love it. It's nice and crispy. It's a perfect size for like full-sized pickles, dill pickle canning. So we'll do that. And a 1/3 of the row will be for okra. Okra grows really well here in southern Missouri, and a 1/3 of a row for us will be about 10 plants, and I think that's going to be perfect just for our family. Next up will be 1 full row of peppers. Yes, just 1 row. In the past, we have grown so many peppers. Peppers are actually my favorite thing to grow in the garden, and in the past years we've had 2 full rows. But this year, our garden is just for planting what we eat and a realistic amount of what we eat. So more than 1 row of peppers for us is too much. So we'll divide this row into the bell peppers, the red roasting peppers, and any of the spicy peppers that we will need for canning salsa, pickled jalapenos, those kinds of things. Just enough for what we'll eat throughout the year. Then we move on to tomatoes. Now, generally, we plant 2 rows of tomatoes for our family. 1 row of paste tomatoes and 1 row of slicers, and then we kind of mix in some cherry tomatoes. This year, I just had a feeling deep down inside me that we needed to plant more tomatoes. I don't know why that is, but I couldn't shake that feeling. So this year we will be planting a 3rd row of tomatoes. There'll be slicers that we can use for diced tomato canning, tomato juice, and just a lot of fresh eating. So this year, instead of 2, we're increasing to 3 rows of tomatoes. It will be about 90 plants total. We will be growing cherry tomatoes, but we're going to be doing that in the big Crystalix buckets that we've been showing you, so we can actually have them closer to the house and we can just come out and eat and snack and that kind of thing. So the cherry tomatoes will not be in the garden. So yesterday, that's where we left off, and we have several rows left to do. Our plans for this part of the garden will be a variety of butternut squash, and then the remainder will be sweet potatoes. So that's what we need to finish today. Let's get to work.
Like Sarah said, we left off yesterday with our last row of tomatoes. The next thing in the garden is going to be our butternut squash. Now, because the tomatoes get big and bushy, and the butternut squash, even though we're going to grow them on a trellis, will also get pretty big and bushy, we're going to actually put a double walkway between these 2. Like Sarah said earlier, that may seem like overkill, and this time of year when you're planting, it may seem like, oh my gosh, we wasted so much space in the garden by leaving all this space for walkways. But trust me, every year, this time of year when we're planting, we say, when we get done planting, we say, that seems like an awful lot of space between rows. We probably should have planted everything closer together. But when we get to about July and we're out here harvesting, we always say, we probably should have left more space in between the rows because those plants get big. So this year we're trying our hardest to actually leave the right amount of space so we don't regret it later on in the summer. So with all that being said, we're going to put a second solid row here. So we have a double walkway here. And then we'll lay down a row that has holes in it for our butternut squash. Now, you may have noticed when Sarah was showing you around, some of the spots that we put down already have holes, and some don't. All of the fabric that we're using this year so far is stuff that we've used in previous years. This stuff will last a long time. There's no need to buy it every year. I'm hoping we'll get at least 5 to 8 years out of this. I think this stuff that we're using right now is on its 3rd year, and it's not showing any signs of letting, of degrading. So that's really great. So we're gonna get started. Again, a solid row and then a row with holes.
When we lay down the fabric, we overlap each row by about 6 inches to make sure that there's enough room that the weeds can't get any sunlight and grow up. When you're putting the staples down to secure it to the ground, you can put them anywhere from 2 to 4 feet apart. We don't have a lot of wind here in the Missouri Ozarks, but we do get some. 4 feet apart, 3 to 4 feet apart is pretty good for us. But there are a lot of places out there that have a ton of wind, and in that case, we recommend 2 feet apart. Also, we reuse our staples from year to year, even though they get rusty. The rusty ones actually work better. They grip onto the ground better and they grip into the fabric. So make sure that you keep these year after year and continue using them. We will have to break out a new box of the staples this year because we need more. They're nice and shiny metal and nice and slippery, but these actually rusty ones work better.
I wanted to show you guys quickly this awesome tool that one of our subscribers sent us. I'll put a link to this in our Amazon shop as well so you guys can take a look at it. But this is for putting in the staples. In the past, we've always been on our hands and knees, pounding them in with hammers. But someone sent us this and said, I think this will save your back a lot of bending. And at first, I didn't know if I'd like this thing or not. But I can tell you, after putting in all these rows yesterday, I've fallen in love with this thing. Basically, what it does is it's got a magnet in the bottom, and this is weighted. So you can just put your staple in like this. It holds it in place, and then you just walk down your row to wherever you want your staple, pound it into the ground, and move on. And you don't have to continue to be down on the ground or bending up and down all day. And by the end of the day, I can tell you, normally from doing this, my back is sore, and last night, my back wasn't sore at all. So, this is a great tool. Alright, so we have our double walkway done. Next piece will be for where the squash will actually go. So I found a piece that I know already has holes in it with the right spacing. In this case, every 18 inches. We'll put that down next. Well, the entire garden is done as far as the ground cover goes. You can see now we've got everything covered. We've got our garden all laid out exactly the way we want it. And so the next step is to move on to putting holes in the pieces that don't already have the appropriate size holes. Which for us, the only ones we have to do this year are going to be right up here at the front for our beans. We have 5 rows of beans that we're going to be growing this year, and all of those have to have a plant spaced every 6 inches. Now, it may seem like a lot of work to put a hole every 6 inches down a 50-foot row of this woven ground cover, but let me tell you, you need to learn from our mistakes. If you've got weeds in your area like we do, this is the best way to do it. When we first started using the woven ground cover, we thought, well, on things that go really close together, we'll just leave a space between two spots, and we'll just, be able to plant our seeds in that space. And we only left about maybe a 2-inch gap between the pieces of ground cover. I can tell you that just in that 2-inch gap, so many weeds grew and really outgrew the plants that we were trying to grow, to the point where we couldn't pull the weeds, because with the plants being so closely spaced together, if you tried to pull the weeds, you actually pulled up the plants that were your garden plants. So by doing it this way and putting a hole every 6 inches, it solves that problem. Now, also remember that, this may seem like a lot of work, but you're only going to have to do this once every like 5 years, because you save this piece, and even though you may move this piece of the ground cover to another spot of the garden, you always have this piece as, either your bean piece or your tomato piece or whatever it is. So you're only having to do this every, several years. Now, as far as putting the holes in the ground cover, there's several ways that you can do it. When we first started using the ground cover, I always used this right here. This is my weed torch. Basically, this hooks up to a propane tank, like for your gas grill. And you can use this, what this is really for is for burning weeds along fence lines. But it actually works great for burning the holes in the plastic as well. Over time though, I've learned that this isn't my favorite way to be making the holes. For one thing, this size is okay for some things, but I find that for some things it's too small and for some things it's too big. So the way that I prefer to make holes now is with a torch like this. This is a butane torch. It's just a simple, you just pull the trigger and it comes on. I also sometimes use a handheld propane torch, but I actually like the butane better, only because it's more wind resistant and you can control it a little bit easier. I picked this up at Walmart, but they do sell them on Amazon if you can't find them at your local Walmart. But this is a great thing. You can refill it and it works really well. So this is what I like, because I can control the size of the hole, and I think, in all honesty, it's just as fast. So for things like beans, again, we're going to do a hole every 6 inches, and with the torch we just literally make our hole, and we don't measure them. We don't measure the size of the hole, we don't measure the spacing, we just kind of guess and get it, close enough. Now, one thing that you'll learn as well is that burning the holes on brand new ground cover is a lot easier than burning holes on old ground cover like I'm using here. And that's because there's a lot of dirt and things and moisture on this older stuff, and it makes it a little harder to burn. Still not a hard job, but not quite as easy as on the brand new stuff. So we'll just move down the row and we'll burn a hole every 6 inches. I've got these 2 rows of beans. I've got the holes burned on these 2 rows. Now these 2 rows took me about 10 minutes, so about 5 minutes a row. Not really a difficult job and really not that time consuming. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's starting to rain. We just got an alert on our phone that heavy rain is getting here much faster than we anticipated. So the last thing that we're going to try to get done today is putting up our electric fencing around the garden to start keeping the animals out. Trellises are going to have to wait for another day. So we're going to start getting that put up, and we'll show you guys what that is. All right, we've got just a little break in the rain again, but I can see that there's more coming. So we're going to get started putting this fence up. Now the fence that we use on our garden is the Premier One poultry net. It's electric netting, And the exact one that we use here on the label, it is the Poultry Net 12-48-3 double spike. So this is a 48-inch tall fence, so a 4-foot tall fence, and this is what we use all the way around the garden. Now when we first started using the woven ground cover, we didn't put this kind of border area around the garden. We just laid out our rows, and then we put the electric fencing, outside of the garden. We've learned a lesson with that after using it now for several years, and that is to use some extra pieces and run this extra piece all the way around the garden. And then we put our electric fence actually on here so that part of the plastic is inside and part is outside of the fence. That way, when we need to mow and things like that, we're not having to take the fence up and down. One drawback to this type of fencing is that you can't use a weed eater near it. You can't get real close to it with the lawnmower. So by doing this, not only does it keep grass from growing up onto the electric fence, which keeps it nice and strong, but it also makes it so you don't have to be taking it up and down to mow. So just a tip, it's what we do, even though it does require you to have more of the ground cover. It saves you a ton of work in the summer. We're going to start putting this up and get it plugged in, and we'll be all set for the day. Well, the fence is all up. We've got it plugged in. It's all energized now, ready to start keeping the rabbits and our chickens and ducks and everything else out of the garden. We're hoping to get started planting by later this week, but it's all going to depend on the weather. They said on the news this morning that some parts of the Ozarks could get a ½ inch of rain this week, and some parts could get 5 inches of rain this week. I wasn't able really to tell where we are in that. Hopefully we're not on the 5-inch side. But either way, we'll just have to work around the rain. I think that's how our week is going to be, working in between rain showers. If you're enjoying our channel, I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button before you leave. I hope that you'll try out this system of growing with the woven weed fabric. It has been an absolute blessing for us. Make sure you check out growersolution.com, which is where we get this, and they have great deals on it. Until next time, you guys, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.